Welcome to In Conversation with MANWAR podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Do Not Be a Bystander campaign. You can join us in raising awareness about bullying by visiting the donotbeabystander.com, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay informed about upcoming episodes. Today's participants are Tausif, Miarab, Sidika, and Orko. Our special guest for today's episode is Trevor Fairweather.
Welcome to our Bullying Awareness podcast. I'm your host, Manwar Khan. Today, I'm joined by four young individuals who are ready to share their thoughts and insights on the topic of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a complex and powerful concept that involves letting go of hatred and anger. Today's participants are Tausif, Mehrab, Siddika, and Orko. Before we continue, I would like to introduce our special guest for today's podcast, Trevor Fairweather. Trevor will shed some lights on this topic and give some advice and tips. So, I want to talk a little bit about Trevor. Trevor is a program director with extensive experience in managing complex software and hardware projects. He's a result-oriented individual who possesses strong public policy abilities through effective communications, team collaboration, and management of resources. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Thank you, Trevor, for giving us this time and join this podcast. Now that we have introduced our participants, let's get started with the question. My first question is for Tausif. What does forgiveness mean to you, and why is forgiveness important in our lives?
So to me, forgiveness is an act of letting go of anger or the desire for revenge towards someone who has mistreated you. It involves a mindful of choice to release negative emotions and to offer understanding and acceptance instead. Forgiveness is a deeply personal and transformative process that can bring healing and freedom to both the forgiver and the person being forgiven. Forgiveness is important in our life in several reasons. I will mention some like emotional well-being. At first, holding onto the grudges and harboring feelings of something can be emotionally draining, and it can be mentally bad for our well-being. Forgiveness allows us to release this negative emotion that is fostering inner peace and emotional healing and also the personal growth. And another is relationship repair and growth. It's one of the most important points I would mention here, because forgiveness plays a crucial role in repairing damaged relationships. And when we forgive, we open the door for forgiveness and understanding and improving the communication. It also allows us to let us go the past hurts and build ourselves stronger, healthy, and a connection with others. And it also breaks the cycle of negativity. Like we are forgiving someone, and it's also helping them to get over the mistake they had done before, and it also gives us a peace in our mind. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now that you talked about that repairing relationship, my actually next question was on that.
Oh, sorry.
So, no problem. You didn't answer that question. Even if you answered, I would be still asking that question to our next participants. But you brought some points; those are really important, and those are actually great answers. That was a great answer. So my question is, it as Tosif mentioned that it is important for when it comes to repairing relationship. So can forgiveness help repair relationships, and how? Mehrab.
Okay. So, first of all, to start off that answer, why do we need to repair relationships, right? Relationships are the most important part of a human life, in my opinion. Without it, we as species wouldn't have evolved. Relationships creates bond, a bridge of trust. As humans, we all make mistakes. It is a common human trait. Someone may have done you wrong and hurt you, but if the and to answer the second part of the question, how, if they genuinely feel guilty about it and ask for forgiveness, I think they should be forgiven, because we all know, and we should always do this. Give everyone a second chance, even if they do not. So, as Tausif said, even if they do not apologize, the best thing will just be cutting them off from your lives and forget and forgive them. The more you hold on to the grudge, the more you will hurt yourself. Rather, I think the best thing is just to let it go and move forward instead of taking any revenge or something. But to coming to the main gist of the question is, uh, can forgiveness help repair relationships? It definitely can. Suppose your best friend, you have a best friend, and did something wrong that that hurt you very much, and he's feeling guilty about it or something. Who knows? Maybe he can be the only friend. He could be the only person you trust, right? If that relationship is gone, who do you share your feelings through? Who do you share your thoughts to when you are alone, when you feel lonely, when you are feeling down? Who do you share it to? You might not have any other person to. He was that door for you to escape. So if he or she, right, and if he or she is genuinely sorry about it, I think second chance should always be given, and that the bridge broken, the bridge of trust that was broken could be reconstructed uh, more strongly, right? And forgiveness also, makes bonds more stronger. It helps us grow as people. Forgiveness is a trait that we should always have, and not be so cold hearted about it. Well, that's it.
Great answer. Thank you so much, Mehrab. So, teaching and encouraging forgiveness in families and communities can contribute to a more sympathetic, understanding, and harmonious environment. So, my next question is for Siddika. How can we teach and encourage forgiveness in our families and communities?
Well, as you mentioned, teaching and encouraging forgiveness in families and communities can contribute to healthier relationships, conflict resolution, and overall well being. So, how can we teach and encourage forgiveness in our families and communities? Well, one of the ways is by leading by example. Model forgiveness in your own action and interactions. When you make a mistake, apologize sincerely and seek forgiveness. Show empathy and understanding towards others' mistakes and demonstrate that forgiveness is a natural part of relationships. Another technique is by teaching empathy and perspective taking. Help family members and community members develop empathy by encouraging them to understand others' experiences, emotions, and motivations. Teach them to put themselves in others' shoes and consider alternative perspectives. This can promote understanding and compassion and make forgiving more likely. We could also teach tolerance and acceptance, promoting that understanding that everyone has their own unique experiences and perspectives helps others. It makes it easier for them to forgive the other person. This reduces the likelihood of conflicts and increases the willingness to forgive. Remember that forgiveness is a personal process. Not everyone may be ready or willing to forgive immediately. It is crucial to approach forgiveness with passion, patience, understanding, and respect for individuals' own journeys. By promoting forgiveness within families and communities, we can foster healthy relationships, resolve conflicts, and cultivate a more compassionate and harmonious society, which I think we all want to achieve. Thank you.
Excellent. No, great answer. Thank you so much. So, forgiveness is a human experience that involves forgiving and letting go negative feelings towards someone who has hurt us. So, my next question is for Orko: is are there any psychological or emotional benefits associated with that forgiveness? Your opinion
Um,
on that?
yeah. So, or so your question. It is a very. I think it's very personal. So it's a personal perspective on forgiveness, and I think forgiving in the personal aspect is more about letting yourself free from the resentment, and it gives you a better perspective, and it teaches you the benefits of reducing internal aggravation and all those toxic feelings you know um, that might lead you to want I mean, there's pent up emotions inside you. It's natural for you to feel something malicious, like wanting revenge or and that's really detrimental to yourself, because it is affecting your inner peace. It's really psychologically tormenting, right? So it is really, I think it's really effective, and it is also really encouraging that forgiving doesn't mean that you have to forget or be completely not careful of that thing happening, that whatever happened to you and you cannot forgive, that you thought. You don't have to forget that, but what you have to do is let yourself free, because that will allow you to really understand the importance of letting go and moving on, and really not giving that much importance on what others did to you, and that really will motivate you, and that will create a lot of, I guess, self assurance, because now other people won't have that much effect on your mental health, your psychology, and that's going to be really beneficial for you to for your future. You moving on throughout your life is going to be more beneficial. You're going to live a more peaceful life. You're going to have less problems, less stress, anxiety will be less, and overall you're going to have a better physical and mental health. And I think that's what forgiving does, is it really significantly betters your whole life, actually. So yeah, that's my answer to your question. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Orko. That was a great answer. That was a tough question. I know that. I knew that. I was going to ask that to Tausif, but then I changed my mind and I thought I would ask that to Orko. All right. So, with the completion of our questioning, we move on to the final segment, our podcast. I would like to invite our special guest, Trevor, to shed some lights on this and any tips and advice you have for them.
Forgiveness has multiple layers. Simple things like a mistake, like a reply all in an email that you never intended to do, and which may obviously annoy people, to the extreme of when people are doing illegal things. I'm going to park the illegal things because it's a lot more complex as a topic. So people have a tendency to think folks made a mistake and it was on purpose, like a reply all. So in that example, you have to accept that people just make human mistakes. Sometimes they fill out a form wrong. Sometimes they give us the wrong link. Like there are mistakes like that. What you have to separate, was it purposeful? And that's where the different layer, the two conversations come in. Was it something that was being done by accident or on purpose? In the case of the email, you can do something simple, like follow up with them in person. Preferably not yet another reply all. You can actually send a message to them directly saying, did you intend to do this to everybody? Because you might want to reconsider that next time, whether it's giving them tips. But because what you don't want to do is embarrass them and make the situation worse. So the the if you have a chance to do it in person, because when you start giving advice and tips to people, in person is always better, or a phone call, something like that is always better, because there's context to it instead of saying just a straight DM. Did you intend to do that? Because again, people don't really, there's no tonal content to it. It's like, because you're trying to encourage forgiveness, or an environment of forgiveness, because it's a mutual respect thing going back and forth. That if you make a mistake, that other people will acknowledge that, yes, it was just a mistake. Everybody said you don't want to be carrying the baggage of a lack of forgiveness with you everywhere you go. You do want to carry empathy because you want to be in an environment of empathy. In a professional environment, when somebody keeps making a recurring mistake, you then have to start considering, is this a training issue? Is this a behavior issue? Is this a knowledge issue? Like there's obviously something missing when it's a repeated mistake. So again, one of the reasons you do the follow-up is sometimes to figure out why was that mistake happening. Maybe they didn't understand how to use Outlook properly or the new email system like Google because you just transferred over. You don't know what the reason was. And of course, if you catch them early, they don't keep making that same mistake over and over and over. And trust me, that one can become, it's such a simple mistake, but I have seen people get fired over replying to providing the wrong information or reply all because it had intellectual property. So there's levels to mistakes. But you also have that threshold of professional versus personal. So even though you can't forgive them on the professional side, you can forgive them on the personal side. And those are two different things. Because you can be assigned somebody that works on your team. And yes, they keep making mistakes. So your next question is, do you really want to keep working with the person? Don't confuse that with like forgiving and not forgiving. It's forgiving in the sense that you can forgive them personally, but not necessarily professionally. They're two different topics. Because that's more the mutual respect position rather than anything else. Because here's the other thing that happens in the professional environment is you don't always know the context of what knowledge they had to make a decision at that point in time. Because we can see this in movies or when people decide to get into a Twitter thread with somebody and it goes viral. People will say, well, why did they do X, Y, or Z? And it'll be like, well, they only had like 4 seconds to make a decision. Good luck making the correct decision in 4 seconds. You'll see that in professional sports a lot. You'll see that with actors. You'll see that with a number of things that there's a decision that has to be made at that point in time. And they're going to make the best decision they can. So that comes back to understanding the context and the environment that they had to do that decision. Is it forgivable? And sometimes people are in a position that you see spokespeople do this all the time. Spokespeople will share information about a topic that they disagree with. And you may challenge them later, and you'll basically say back to them, my job was to promote that activity. Even though I disagree with that activity, I have to promote it.
Right. No, great. Excellent. Thank you, Trevor. Do you guys have any questions for Trevor? All right.
No,
All right, excellent. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind our listeners that there are several resources available to help individuals dealing with bullying. The government of Alberta has a bullying helpline which provides support and advice to those experiencing bullying. This helpline can be reached at 1-888-456-2323. Bullying is a violation of human rights. Under no circumstances is bullying acceptable. As a community, we have our shared responsibility to take a stand against bullying and refuse to be bystanders. Thank you to our special guest, Trevor, and all the participants for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining in conversation with MANWAR Khan. I will see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me.